And welcome to another installment of The Road to Deadpool and Wolverine. I am Tony. This is the Nerd Initiative Network, and we're going to be talking about the movie Logan this evening. With me, I have Megan. We may have some other people joining on later. But regardless, we're going to be talking about the 2017 Fox film Logan, featuring the basically Old Man Wolverine or Old Man Logan storyline in the movies. To get us started, we're going to go ahead and just want to remind you guys of a few things. First of all, if you like what you see here, please be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, especially on our YouTube channel. You can also check out, here's the link for that. I guess I should say that first. Please also check out our merch store. You can find some amazing things, different cups, shirts, different things that you can have to just support your fanfare for Nerd Initiative. Also, please be sure to check out our website. This show is going to be streaming directly to the website right now as it's going live. In fact, all of our live shows stream directly to our homepage. You can see those there if you don't want to be looking anywhere else. So nerdinitiative.com is for that. And of course, it being Wednesday, I would be amiss if I did not advise you to be sure to check out New Comic Book Day. The amount of comic book reviews, I believe it was over 30 reviews this week of comics from different publishers. Even if you're not into the mainstream Marvel and DC or even Image, we've got a lot of different comics that we're covering, whether it be IDW, Boom, and more. So be sure to check them out. And of course, tomorrow, Thursday, is Wrestling Night Live with hosts Rich and Ken. Be sure to check them out there. I believe it's 8 o'clock at night, and get all of your wrestling goodness that way. And with that said, we're going to go ahead and just jump on in. So, Megan, welcome back.
Hi, how are you?
So it was interesting. A couple weeks ago, when I had asked your opinion, I believe it was during X-Men Origins Wolverine, I asked your thoughts on Logan, and you had a very paused response because you were waiting for this episode to give it. So let's not bury the lead here. Go ahead. I want to hear your thoughts on either Wolverine as a whole, because I know if you guys don't know, Derek Paperweight Entertainment is also part of Nerd Initiative. He's amazing guy, but he hates Wolverine. It's his least favorite. I should say, his least favorite character. So when we were in Chicago, every time I saw a Wolverine cosplay, I had to point it out to him. And at some point, he's just like, "Okay, it's not funny anymore." And I'm sitting there going, "It's very funny." So Megan, what are your thoughts on Logan? What are your thoughts on Wolverine? I want to hear this now.
I thought it was the most boring thing. It was just it was so boring and so depressing, and it was just so long, and it kills me because the actors did an incredible job. They did so good, but it's like I just don't think they deserved to have that movie happen to them.
Which is funny though, because if I remember correctly, and I'm gonna pull up. I want to pull up stuff as well because I do like the minimal amount of research on here. I mean, so IMDb rating is 8.1 out of 10. Let me see. Do they give us the Rotten Tomato? It was well received, if I remember correctly. In fact, I think it was more critically, responded to. Let's see, Logan. Should have done this beforehand, but let's go ahead and see. Rotten Tomatoes for 2017 Logan. It's certified fresh at 93% with a 90% audience score. Of course, we don't take Rotten Tomatoes
No.
as the end all when it comes to anything. We've seen
No.
it with like Captain Marvel and the Marvels and other films. It definitely does not get, it always right. But when you said that, like, so I didn't watch it for this installment. It's one of those things where it's like, I know for next week for Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix, I
Yeah.
do have to watch the films because they were so forgettable for me that
Yeah.
I just like, I remember I was watching a clip on TikTok. Some posted a clip of Psylocke, and there was the whole scene where Psylocke jumps onto the Blackbird and then Archangel's inside the cockpit, and of course you have Nightcrawler bamfing everybody away, and
Yeah.
Psylocke jumps off, and I'm like, that was a really well done scene. I'm like, I don't even remember that in the film. So Logan was a little bit more memorable for me, and I thought I felt fondly about it, but you do make a good point because there's a lot of long pauses in between. There are
Yeah.
great characters,
Yeah.
I absolutely loved Caliban in this film.
Oh,
I thought
Caliban is the unsung hero that no one gives credit to. He killed himself to take out oh, what was it? He tried to take out Doctor Rice. He did so
mhm.
much. Just everyone's like, "Oh, it was all Wolverine and X-23 and Xavier." It's like, but he did so much. He was taking care of Xavier too. He didn't
Yep.
have to.
And it's
Goodness.
funny, I'm gonna be honest with you, like, I've read comics and I was a big, like, fan of X-Men, growing
Yeah.
up and everything. Caliban was not one of those characters that I even remembered. I actually went back and was, like, looking into Caliban after this film, like, and that's the great thing about these movies, you watch something and then you're like, "I wanna know more about that character," and then you fall in love with the character, and I really liked Caliban in this film. I loved I mean, let's face it, you're spot on with it. They tortured him, like, he struggled. They put him through so much for him to be able to do that last bit of sacrifice. It's kind of like, "Yeah, I screwed up, and I messed up, and I cost you guys, a lot, but at the same time, I'm gonna do my best to make it right." It was also weird because the Charles Xavier twist was really interesting. Now, for those of you guys who aren't comic book fans, I liked Old Man Logan in the comics.
Mhm.
I even liked Old Man Logan in the Secret Wars event. Like I liked that. And Secret Wars is kind of like a mixed bag for some people, but like they didn't go any of that route with this film. Like
No.
as like Old Man Logan was dystopian for everybody. It wasn't just for mutants.
Yeah.
And you had like Hulk clans and like there were factions and then there were people that were like they were gangs that were based off of the original Avengers. I'm gonna fix something.
Yeah.
This is driving me nuts. Um, but the Charles Xavier twist, I don't know how I felt. We've been hating on him the last couple weeks.
Yeah, we ha
Um,
it's for good reason.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know, did this movie make him any more, let's say, as a sympathetic character in your mindset, or was it just kind of still the same thing?
It's about the same, but this didn't feel like Xavier to me. Just I know he's old, he's having seizures, it's a lot. But, like, most of the film, I sat there and I was like, "Just let him die. Like, why are you keeping him alive? He's clearly just going through so much, and you don't have any use for him, and it's like, just why are you prolonging his life? Put him out of his misery. Just let him go." But no, Wolverine just I guess just wanted to keep him alive to not feel like the old one in the room, but whatever.
I also felt like the problem with superhero films in my mindset, there are there are a lot of times where they'll try to do top billing for characters. They won't kind of look at it as let's find a person who can embody the character. They'll look at more of like, what's a big name person that we can kind of fit in. And we know with the first X-Men, not Patrick Stewart is absolutely a Charles Xavier. If you think of
Oh,
Charles
for sure.
Xavier, like it is as visually like satisfying, like a perfect casting for any character that I've seen. I mean, it was simple. Like Charles Xavier and 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 Patrick Stewart are the same person. It's very much that. Um, and then of course Hugh Jackman, who really wasn't as well known at the time. Like he had done theater and some other stuff, but
Yeah.
if I remember correctly, I think Russell Crowe was actually suggested at first, I think, to be Wolverine. Like that was one of the first castings. Then he recommended Hugh Jackman for the role, and that's kind of how it just happened. Um, but we have, him that's kind of going the role, and then of course we know if Wolverine's in a film, there are people that are going to watch it just for Wolverine. And I kind of feel like for Logan, it, whereas Wolverine has had a kind of a jaded past now with X-Men Origins and with the Wolverine, where they were okay, but they weren't, as critically acclaimed as, let's say, X2. They could never recreate X2 and, let's say, Days of Future Past.
Mhm.
I almost feel like they put Charles Xavier in there, Patrick Stewart, to give that extra name, to kind of make it sell. Uh,
It was kind of like they were going for a buddy cop movie because you have angry Logan who's like, "No, we can't help. We can't do anything. We just got to survive." And then you have Xavier who's like, "No, there's a mutant out there. We have to help them." I think it was trying to have the kindness relief of for the movie, someone who was empathetic that could want to keep helping. Because if you just had Logan in that movie, just him being angry, you wouldn't have a movie. You wouldn't have X-23, you wouldn't have Caliban, you wouldn't have anything. You would just have the angry limo driver. That's all you'd have. So I think Charles Xavier was really needed in there.
Mhm. Now, this film got us a rated R rating.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I will say some of my favorite interactions with I like how they played on him aging or being aged. The claws weren't working perfectly well. That whole scene where he's asleep in the limousine and the guys are trying to steal the rims, like
Yeah.
that worked really, and that was visceral. But I almost wonder if like we could have got a whole lot more for the rating. I mean, there was like the scene with the guys in the at the farm, with the was it the with the water well or whatever. So we did get a couple things like that, and then of course we got the clone of Wolverine. But I don't know if I don't know. I kind of feel like they were there, but they could have done more, and
Mhm.
it could have been more visceral. But
Yeah, I mean, you had the whole middle section of the movie where not much happened. So they could have added more in there. I think they could have had more cameos in there, honestly, instead of clone of Wolverine and Caliban, which is all we really got, and some mutant kids. But
yeah.
I see what you're saying. They definitely could have done something differently with that because you have the R rating. Go balls to the wall. That's what I would expect you to do, especially in a movie that we all thought was gonna be Old Man Logan, but was not Old Man Logan. Yeah, they could have done something a lot different. It seemed like the R-rated parts of it was used for very strange parts, like attacking kids or killing that family or
Mhm.
Charles Xavier getting Wolverine to help him pee. There was just a lot that was like, "Why?" That I didn't need to see that.
So let's talk about Laura for a minute. X-23.
Yeah.
Um I kind of felt like it could have been more about her. I get the younger aspect. I felt like that kind of worked for this, especially if
Mhm.
this was right around the time that Disney was acquiring Fox. Fox was kind of on the limb. I think one of the things that they did was they made this young character or this young actress for the idea that maybe, oh, see, we're more attractive. We're introducing this new character. This is more intellectual property that you guys can use that we've already established for you. And Marvel, of course, Disney's sitting there going, we're not going to use any of it. Um, but I liked her. I liked her a lot, and um, it was an interesting way to kind of incorporate her. Now, I'm not as familiar with X-23. I'm not sure if you are
Yeah.
in the comics. How consistent is her storyline? I mean, is there any similarities from the comics to the movie?
I'm more familiar with her as Wolverine, as grown
Mhm.
up. So I didn't see too much of her as a child, but I would think, I mean, it's pretty open and pretty easy to follow that she was experimented on and she's a mutant because of.
Oh, Maggie, you there? Or is that me? Uh-oh. We might be having some technical difficulties. Hold on just a moment. Okay, guys, I don't know if you can see me. I think Megan kind of fell off there for a second. We're having some technical difficulties, but that kind of happens. Just also so you guys know, as I think Megan's going to try to hop back on here in a second. Um, if you're not aware, we normally are going on to Facebook with our show. Right now, there seems to be a restream issue with Facebook. We are trying to get it figured out. So we are not currently streaming on Facebook. Um, so if you want to like share to Facebook, we would greatly appreciate that. Um, if anybody could at least let me know, since we're having the difficulties, those of you who are in the actual chat right now, just let me know you can see me, so I know it's not on my end. Z or anybody, can you just say hello real quick? It's like Bueller, anybody? I guess I could pull out my phone and check real quick. Oh, Z, thank you. You can see me. I appreciate that. Okay. So let me just go ahead and go through some notes here real quick as I check and see if Megan. Let me just check see if Megan. I can't see you, Z, but that's okay. And Law says she'll be joining a touch late. Megan, if you are watching this, please make sure you jump in. Thank you, Geek Render. I appreciate that you are. And by the way, Geek Renderer, I saw your Netheads digital. It was like a digital trading card. That thing is pretty cool. Here we go. Oh, let me touch it.
Okay. I don't know what happened. Every other website was working but Restream. So that was really confusing.
Yeah, and Facebook is having issues with Restream right now.
Yeah.
Michael had asked if I had to recertify it. I double checked and I actually removed it and put it back in. And every time I go to schedule with Restream, it says there's an error. Try again later. So I'm gonna reach out to Restream technical support and see what's going on.
Okay. I posted the link
Geek
to
Render.
the YouTube on there instead because I couldn't get my page to stream it either.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's a whatever happens, Meta sometimes updates things. Restream is at the beck and call of whatever platform whenever they change something. The worst is, and I'm sorry to say this, and you can, Meta, if you want to get your, panties in a bunch for this as well, is Instagram is terrible. You have to put in a new stream code every single time you want to do it, and we just decided it wasn't worth it. Geek Render said he's going to do a digital card for me. That is awesome, man. I appreciate it. If you haven't checked out Geek Render, they've made like gold coins for like Jay and Silent Bob, and they do like digital trading cards. It's pretty cool.
Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, I got tagged in something on Instagram. Oh,
sorry. Oh shoot.
It's okay.
I've never actually been in charge of these controls. I was trying to find the comments, but I'm just not touching anything. Good luck, guys.
Far right hand side. You see, says chat.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I was looking for the word comment. I'm so sorry, people.
Yeah, and then if you click on it, you can actually add it up there. So if you see any chats, and see, we're all learning. It's all a learning curve. We're nothing's perfect. But if you do click on a specific thing, like if I click on Z right now, he's got the heart going. I can actually bring him up on screen.
Oh, very
eventually.
Cool. There it is.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
All right. Well. So what I was saying, I liked Laura. I thought she was a great character. But I do agree with you. I think that they tried to make her very young because they thought, all right, she's going to be X-23 indefinitely forever. And I do think she will be X-23 at some point again. But I think there was a very dark decade where none of us knew what was going to happen with her or if she was coming back or not. But she was phenomenal for being such a young child playing such a dark role. She just nailed it the entire time.
Now, Daphne Keane, the actress who played her, actually came out recently because there was some speculation about whether we would see X-23 in Deadpool Wolverine, and she said that unfortunately, to her disappointment, she wasn't asked to come back. So it doesn't mean we won't see X-23. It's just that we for sure won't see her as X-23. Now, could she pull an Andrew Garfield and lie to us?
Absolutely.
Yes, she could. And
She
I
is.
think that's the thing. Actors lie to us all the time, and so people. I don't know why in history it's been so hard for an actor to be like, yeah, I'm not in this film, and everyone's like, oh, you lied to us. I'm like, yeah, I got paid money to not tell you the truth,
Yeah.
and it's like you should just expect it because everyone's like, oh, actors are liars anyway. I'm like, they're actors. Um, but yeah, I mean, we there's not much from this movie that we're going to see. Now, I don't think, and I don't think that we know it's not. So I had this opinion. Okay, let me backtrack a little bit because I'm rambling. I had this thought when they first announced it was Deadpool and Wolverine that the coolest way to introduce Wolverine was to have Deadpool kind of like time loop into this universe, and like, Laura's left, Wolverine's in the grave, Deadpool's there, and he goes to pay respects, and he digs him up and is like, "You're coming with me," and that would be how, like absolutely that would be, or something even like worse like that, like you have him peeing on the grave or something like that,
Oh
and
my god,
but
yes.
it would be something where it's like everyone's, oh, you can't touch this character. This was such a good ending for Logan, and just be respectful, and it would be disrespectful to bring him back. I think that's the whole thing for Deadpool is just be disrespectful, force him back when he shouldn't have been. I think that would have absolutely been the way to do it. But we know that this Wolverine in Deadpool Wolverine is going to be one that has lost basically everything,
Yeah.
and he's still a younger man. Or no, I should take that back. He doesn't really look like an old younger man. I think there was some gray, if I remember looking at him. Um, but any thoughts or speculations, or is this the least favorite part of Deadpool and Wolverine that you're seeing?
No, my least favorite part will be when Taylor Swift shows up, and I'm not looking forward to that, but I know she's gonna be there. I just know it. So, that'll be a part I'll be complaining about. But no, I don't know because 'cause I've thought the same thing. Like, Logan did make me think, is he gonna be in Deadpool Wolverine? Is he gonna have adamantium poisoning? Is he going to be having problems with his powers? Because we did see in the commercial that one of his, claws didn't come out, or the was it all didn't come out all the way.
Right.
So that I was curious if is that adamantium poisoning? Are they gonna try and make their own version of it because they said they weren't gonna touch the ending of Logan. So, are they gonna try to make their own thing with it instead? Because that's where
Mhm.
I'm at.
And that's another thing. What did you think about the adamantium poisoning, like, spin on it?
I think it was a pretty good plot point to make him look old and miserable and hating his life, and it's like, at that point, why are you alive? Like, if you're that I know it's dark, but you guys' life, like, really sucks, and you're really still pushing through. I think at that point, I'd be like, "I'm out. I'm good. I'm all good." But I get why it happened. I get why his powers weren't working. I think it was a really good way to make him look battered and not be able to heal properly, because that's really the only way he wouldn't be able to heal.
Now they introduced a concept in this film that basically, is I'm simplifying it because I'm not going to give the exact way they said it, but it was kind of like the high
Mhm.
fructose corn syrup helped to, what's the word I want to say, um nullify the mutant ability or the mutant gene, and so people weren't becoming mutants in this world. It wasn't a dystopian world. It's just a very no mutant world,
It's
with the
our
exception
world.
of course, yeah. And is it not like I would, okay, this is not even a related movie. Um, one of my gripes about this film is kind of a gripe with like a lot of films. I re so if you haven't heard, Scarlett Johansson is going to be in the new Jurassic World movie.
Yeah.
Um, she's been wanting to do this for a while, which I thought was great because she wanted to step down from big blockbuster films, and of course, why not jump into uh, Jurassic World? I mean, let's go for it. But Aliens had this concept of engineering, the aliens into military or militarized weapons. Logan had this concept of cloning these mutants and using their abilities to make them weapons. You've got Jurassic World. Let's turn the dinosaurs into weapons. It
Yeah.
kind of is. It's kind of like an overdone concept, and it's driving me nuts. But I don't know. I kind of I think that was my least favorite part of the film. I don't know how I felt about the whole high fructose corn syrup thing, but you know, it's there. It's a plot point, and let's bring Law on here too, so she can
Yes.
give her opinion on stuff. Hey, Law.
Hello,
Hello.
hello. We talking Logan?
Yeah. So Megan has
We are.
explained that part of the dislike of this film was that it felt way too long and drawn out. And I personally didn't like the adamantium poisoning, but I will say, in agreeing with Megan, it was a good way to kind of a vehicle to get him to be Old Man Logan. And so what are your thoughts? Let's go ahead and give you a minute to catch yourself up with us.
First off, hello everybody. Black Girl Marvel here. Nice to see everybody here. I don't know. I'm a big fan of this film. I like the fact that it's a little bit more raw and grounded in a sense than most of the other like X-Men-esque Wolverine films. It doesn't seem as fantastical as the other one, so I really appreciated that. I appreciate the heart of it, no pun intended. And I kind of get what you're saying, because like I don't think it would have changed the film if like 15 minutes was shaved. You know what I mean? I don't think it would have changed the film if like 10 to 15 minutes were shaved. I don't know. To me, this is one of my favorite X-Men films, simply because like I could see the potential for where it could go if they would have continued it. I personally would have liked it if this was earlier in Hugh Jackman's career as Wolverine, because we probably could have got more. We probably could have got like more with like his daughter, or like they could have like fleshed some stuff out a little bit more that led into Logan. So like there could have been like excuse me, instead of like that weird X-Men origins, Wolverine, that type of arc for him, maybe that arc could have went into Logan in a better way. So like maybe his trilogy could have ended with Logan, and maybe it could have just like been set up a little bit better, because there was a lot in this film that could have, if you're not if you didn't read the comics or have an idea of like how he became Old Man Logan, or paid attention to like previous films like Days of Future Past to see like how they were doing stuff to make those connections, like Logan just feels like a one-off, which essentially it is, but it just feels like a one-off, and you can lose a lot in translation. So I can admit that even though I loved it, I cry every time I watch it, like every time. There were some things I felt like they probably could have done to make I guess like a stronger plot. You know what I'm saying? Like a stronger plot with characters, because no offense to Caliban, but like his character was unnecessary. If you really think about the whole thing,
that's different from what we start off with, because we both thought he was one of the unsung heroes of the film. I love how there's different opinions.
No, because like I'm not saying like one of my favorite scenes is him being like step into the light, and he like sacrifices himself and things like that. But I've watched so many people react to this film, and they don't know who that character is, and they've watched all of the X-Men films. So we've seen Caliban a couple of times throughout these like films, but nobody knows who he is. And to me, that goes into like the storytelling of it. Like nobody knows who this character is, and how he's like, he's made that jump from being like a seller of his own people to like being one of the people that protects Professor X, that works, type of thing. So
here's the thing. Like, so comparatively, like, if you're in the comic book, if you're really into the X-Men comic books and you know who Caliban is, I would even dare say that Caliban's that deep of a character that like people were pining to necessarily have him on screen, but him being on screen was something that made you go back and go, hey, I want to see what else he's in. Like, I want to know about this character. I think the same way as, and I'm gonna touch a nerve here for a second, is like Darwin in X-Men First Class. Darwin's not a mainstream well-known character. We didn't get a lot of him, but think about, you met him in First Class, and of course you now realize he's like one of those characters that we should have gotten a whole lot more of him.
Right.
And it's an injustice that we didn't. I kind of feel like they're kind of two sides of a similar coin.
I mean, to kind of like be on the opposite end of that devil's advocate, X-Men First Class, in its name, it's the first, right? So when you have characters you don't know, like you could say the same thing for Angel. Nobody knew who Angel was. The other Angel we saw was in like Last Stand. And that's like a whole different, like Angel. So Logan felt like an established world that we had no idea what it was. So for me, like, that's the difference. Like First Class is like, oh, it's all these new characters that like a lot of people don't know about. Like if you're not a comic book fan, you don't know who Alex Summers is. You know what I mean? You don't know like who some of these people are. Like, so I understand that. But to me, it's like watching the first X-Men and nobody knows who they are. But Logan is such an established world that you have Caliban, who's been in movies, who's been like, I think he's been like in one movie previous to this one, previous to that one. And to me, you don't set it up well enough for people to kind of like be able to follow that thread, as opposed to like this first movie where you're like, oh, okay, we're going to see this person again. And then they kill him off. And then it's like, well, let me go look them up then. Instead of like, I just see, to me, the difference is like a world that's being established and a world that's already established, and not having the context for it.
Like it does, because Apocalypse over the other scene, known in that scene, and
Right.
And the actor of Logan called him a.
You're breaking up real bad, Megan.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit there.
Yeah.
Heard that.
No, that's a story of my life. Trust me. Anytime I'm on my other podcast, it's like, you're delayed, La. I'm like, oh snap. Okay, that's
no, but
fine.
I think it was, yeah, because I think because you're right, because I was trying to think when you said that, you know, we've seen him before. It wasn't until Apocalypse that we saw him, and I think that's the thing. Like, there's also, if you go back and again, this is going to be next week when we go back and look at Apocalypse. There's a lot of characters that really did need to be there. Like, you know, we got great moments with them, but they didn't flesh them out. I think, let's face it, while Megan kind of, you know, gets a little bit less pixelated here, we're talking about Fox at the moment where you're better now. You're cutting out there for a second.
Good Lord.
The Fox was in this position where they had the X-Men properties. Disney wanted them. They're in this acquisition. Disney had already stopped giving, you know, much attention to X-Men in the comics at all. I mean, there was literally this whole point where Marvel Entertainment's like, we're not going to make any more new stories for X-Men. We're going to move on. We're going to do more. And that's when they had like more of the rise for Inhumans. And of course, we had that promise for an Inhumans film. And it wasn't until, you know, of course, then the merger starts moving on. And I think at this point, Fox was trying to do whatever they could. And it's kind of like throwing out any character, even though it's something that, I mean, let's face it, we did Apocalypse. That's great. It's a story. It didn't really hit well. And so what do? They go back to one of the few stories that they know that fans loved in the comics is Dark Phoenix, because they know they didn't do it right the first time. So let's see if we can do it wrong the second time. And you've got, you know, characters like Caliban, and you've got, again, like Psylocke. What really drove me crazy, I said earlier that I saw a TikTok video where Psylocke is jumping on the Black Hawk and, you know, and the Blackbird, and they're doing their thing. And it was said that the actress who played Psylocke
Olivia Munn
snuck comic books onto the set because the director, the basically executives did not want them reading comic books to get ideas of what their characters are supposed to be like, which is infuriating. And the reason why Psylocke has the like one comic book accurate costume in the whole movie
Mm-hmm.
is because you said Olivia Munn. She insisted, and they gave her very little screen time when you really think about it.
Yeah, they did.
And I mean, she
Yeah.
looked the best. The rendering of her
her blades,
psionic blades
yeah,
was amazing. She had a physicality. You could tell she was invested in it. And then at the moment of danger, they had her nope out at the end. And it's one of the most upsetting things, because it's kind of like, why was she there? She could have been great. And I think the actress was doing her best to try to do that, and they weren't willing to do it.
She took it seriously.
Yeah,
they didn't.
And it's the same thing. Like, I'll be honest with you, whether you thought Caliban, like I did, was a really necessary, was a kind of a breath of fresh air in the film, or if you didn't like him so much, regardless, he was played well. And
for sure, there was some really acting.
There was some really good gravitas. Like I think that's the thing. Each of the actors in this film did a great job for the role that they did, but then it was in the midst of this long span. Like, did we really need to go to the casino? Did we really? It was almost like they just put him in positions where they could be tracked, and that his seizures could cause the most harm. Because basically, what do? They put him in like a Cerebro, like, hangar to prevent him from really causing damage out in the middle of nowhere. And when you start bringing him out around people, problems are going to happen. And I think it then becomes, the storyline becomes too muddled with itself, that it becomes too much.
I mean, it was quite really stylized. I agree with that. I mean, it was quite stylized, because I think like the hotel scene was essentially like for shock value, right? Because that's hands down one of the coolest scenes in that film, with him like seizing, and Wolverine and what's her name, Laura, the only two that's able to like move. Essentially everybody's frozen, and he's killing people while they're frozen. That's one of the most iconic scenes of that film. So like in a sense, like they did it to kind of feel stylized, but then I also think they did it so that to explore the world a little bit more, because it's not until then that we hear on the radio that they're like, this same thing happened, they killed a whole bunch of X-Men, and now you understand like some backstory about why he's locked up in the middle of nowhere, why he's been put on drugs, and like why these things, like why Logan is feeling the way he's feeling, why he feels like he needs to protect him. So there are different ways they probably could have given us that bit of information, but that was just like the route that they took, to be like, let's go to this hotel, but also if you're trying to save money, like we would just sleep in the car. Like, it's cameras in here. You know what I mean? Like, just like, let's be smart about it. It's cameras. It's cameras all around here. Why would you go somewhere? Like, they know what kind of car you're driving. You never changed your car until you had no choice. You know what I mean? Like, essentially you got like the truck, but like it took you a minute to change your car. Like, there were just little things that like they probably could have tapered and cleaned up. But I'll still say, hands down, for me, it's one of the best, especially with it being rated R. I think every X-Men film should be rated R. I know, like, that's just my like book. Like, even if you don't have it like that it's bloody rated R, I still think it should be rated R, so there could be like some openness to like what they can do. Because you can't tell me somebody like Wolverine isn't vicious. Like, he's vicious in the comics. You know, like even like Cyclops, like his beam is like, that's not just nicking people and oops, they just fall on the ground. Like he can like burr a hole through you, given the power that he wants to display and things like that. So like, to me, this film had a lot of heart. It was just like grounded. It had a change in like how it was made compared to the other ones. And I think that's why for me, it just ranks a little higher. Even though anything I like, I can always say you could have did this better. Like, you could have did this better.
Yeah, I like Geek Renner on here says 100% R men. that would be a good way to.
I don't get it.
R-rated, like rated R.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, yes, that's hilarious. I'm sorry, I'm not here right now. I kind of got in from work like a few minutes ago, so
yeah, and I have to apologize. So let me also apologize, because like La is coming in late, and it's not so much her fault as well, because there's an agreement that I always forget that I remind her the day before. And yesterday I was in the crap. I'm going to be 100% honest with you.
It's okay.
We had our sewage ejector pump in our basement.
Oh,
so
you told me about
bad.
that off camera before.
And
Yeah.
and so it did it again. Like
Oh, did it
it
again?
completely died. So we had to replace it, which meant we had to go into the
To
well
the
where
pump.
all
Yeah.
the stuff
Yeah.
and pull it out.
Eesh.
And just a fun story, because you guys will appreciate this at this point. My wife is a trooper. She's wanted to be 100% involved in all of this because let's face it, I'm a germaphobe for the most part. So the idea of doing anything with fecal matter is too much for me. We finally got it replaced, was doing our stuff, got the new pipes in, and we're testing to make sure that the flow, the switch is working, and it kept not. So we finally got it situated. And so I'm running like the shower, I'm running the bathtub, or no, I'm running the shower, the toilet, and everything else just to put water in. And of course, it's flushing the system out as we're doing it, because it's more clear water. Well, it wasn't doing what she wanted, so she went to go look in to see what was going on, and she was lifting the plate up to look, because it was blocking the path. And when she did, the pipe that we had sealed, that we glued together, came up, and so the pump immediately turned on at that moment and just sprayed at. I think it goes at it was like 100 gallons per second or something like that.
Oh my gosh!
And so it with the full force right in her face, and she's yelling to turn it off, and I'm like, pull the plug. And what she did was she shut off the pipe so that it caused more pressure, and then she finally turned it off. So,
oh my gosh.
We were up late last night.
I'd have went to the doctor immediately, like, check me over, make sure I'm good. Like, give me a shot. Like,
good Lord.
Yeah. It's fixed now.
Lex is a trooper. Yeah, trooper.
Yeah, but in all honesty, like I wasn't messaging anybody.
Oh, I don't blame you, man. No worries over here. Yeah, no worries over here. Yeah.
Now,
oh my god,
something in this movie that kind of like surprised me was the X-Men comics. And the fact that he's like, that's not how it really happened, kid. Like it was kind of funny because we've had a couple times where we have references. You'll see like ASM whatever, or you'll have the different things for different films. And we know that in Deadpool 2, when we get to it, when he sees Juggernaut, he starts quoting off a litany of issues where Juggernaut appears in, just because he's completely fanboying. But the actual incorporation of, or I should go back a little bit farther. Captain America: The First Avenger, we see at the end the kids are running around with Captain America comics. So it's like, okay, using it as kind of like a people profiting off of the escapades of the X-Men and them making them sound grandiose when the world really hates them was actually a very interesting thing. It's kind of, it goes one step beyond, okay, we hate them, we want to eradicate them, but we're also going to basically take advantage of them and make money off of them by telling stories about
sounds
what they
about
did,
right,
although they're terrible.
Sounds about the earth. Yeah, sounds about humanity. Like, yeah, that was one of my favorite things though, was like, of course there would be like, they at this point they've been around for so long, it would make sense that somebody's like made a comic about them. Like, the world knows about mutants during this time. Like, it's so far into the future that like they've been like completely outed. So like, I mean, that sounds about right. Like, I don't know what else I can say about that. That's just, it's like they did it correct for me. And I love how Logan's like annoyed by it. He's like, that ain't right.
Yeah. Z goes, sounds very familiar.
It does, doesn't it?
It's the tale as old as time, in a sense.
Sounds like the world. Yeah.
Other thing that to mention on, what are y'all thought? We talked about high fructose corn syrup. We talked about Caliban. We talked about X23.
Honestly, I love the high fructose corn syrup. I just want to throw that out there. I know you had it when I came in. You were talking about that, and you didn't really like that, but I actually like that because how else would you like? That's poison in itself, and nobody would think otherwise to look at poison for poison. Like, to me, like that just made sense to me. I was just like, put it in there.
But I feel like it's easy though, because like we all kind of know it's already poison. We're all trying not to use it. I feel like there was other creative ways they could do it, but I'm not a writer,
nobody.
So.
I just feel like so many people are like, yeah, we know it's poison, and I'ma still I'm gonna still do it. Especially at that time. I feel like even from that time to like now, things are way different. People are way more conscious healthy. People are way more healthy like now. Even in that time frame hasn't even been like a long time frame. But during Logan, like people still eat like processed foods and stuff like that. And they know for a fact it is not healthy for them. So why wouldn't I still put stuff in your stuff? Like I know you're gonna eat it. Like it's fine. And it doesn't affect the human population, it just affects mutants. Like let's try to get as many mutants as we can get. You know what I mean? Like let's try to get as many as we can get, and nobody would think the wiser because what mutants think, like they wouldn't poison the food. Like they have to eat it too, but it's specifically generated for mutants. So like to me it's simple, but I like that it's simple because some stuff when you trying to kill people, it ain't that big. It's very simple. Depower them.
I just imagine there's some crunchy mom out there that back in 2017 was like their kid was watching and see, Billy, I told you that's why we don't buy that kind of crap, because you would have been able to shoot lasers from your eyes if you want to be
strong like Wolverine. You don't do the high fructose corn syrup. Like,
yeah,
somebody use that to the advantage.
Yeah, because I mean, I'll be honest with you. Like I'm old enough to say this. Popeye is the reason why I liked spinach for a very long time. And so,
I mean, no, for sure, I love spinach, and it's all because of Popeye. Like that's real talk. Like, because that's where we get all our stuff from. Plus, as much as they're mutants, at the end of the day, they're just like advanced humans. They eat the same thing anybody else would eat. They don't eat anything special to be like, this is what fuels my power. They just eat whatever else anybody else eat. They drink whatever else anybody else drink. And even if they were healthy, they still put it in the food and the water and the drink. So like, they weren't safe anywhere. Like. Eating anything really. But I love Laura though. Laura was my favorite character out the whole movie.
Z put on there is the end of Idiocracy. Which by the way, what are we doing? This one here. Yeah. The Idiocracy. Have you seen that movie? Like, no. Like you ever saw Idiocracy? It was called Idiocracy, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Idiocracy. I remember the movie. I've just never seen it.
Yeah, like it's almost now headcanon where it's kind of like after Logan dies, basically the fructose corn syrup just makes everybody stupid. So
it's given Planet of the Apes with the ape virus.
Yeah.
It just made everybody go back to their primal stages. They just went back and started acting like apes. It made the apes act like humans, and it made the humans act like apes. I was like, oh, that's clever. That was sarcasm when I said that. That was weird.
So there was somewhere I wanted to go, and then all of a sudden we went a different direction. No, you didn't cut me off. Like you ever get like stuck in your head and you have this idea that you want to go some route. So we talked about the HighFructose corn syrup, we talked about Caliban, we talked about X-23.
Let me talk about X-23 real quick. I didn't get to talk about her. I love Laura. She might have been like the best thing that came out of this film. As much as I love the film, thanks Z. As much as I love this film, Laura might be the greatest thing. And she's acting still and like, other stuff. I want them to wait for her to become like a young adult, like a little bit older than what she is now. I'll say a couple more years. I want them to base a movie off of her. I think she was great casting. I thought she was amazing in the role. I thought she fit. She had like the like gruffness of Wolverine, but she still had the sweetness of the woman that raised her, in a sense, right? She still cared for people, which I mean, Wolverine does have that side to him, but like that woman influenced her too. I thought she was great. I thought she was like, when I found out that she actually punched him in the face, I was like, she's amazing. I was like, she punched Hugh Jackman in the face for real in that scene. Like, I was like, that's amazing. So like, no, yeah, she actually punched him in the face. That wasn't scripted. She actually punched him in the face.
Ooh. Oh wow.
So when he was like, "Don't punch me," like that was real. Like that was like a real scene between them. But even Hugh Jackman talked about it, and he was just like, she was amazing. And even when they saw her like her audition and stuff like that, like she's just like one of those like prodigy kids in a sense, like one of those like Dakota Fannings, type of things. And so I thought her character was great. I thought like the fact that she's like the Wolverine now, to me, it's just like female Wolverine. Like she was kicking butt too. I was down for it. Plus I wrote a fan fiction, because I used to write them a lot when I was like younger. And not too much younger though, but I used to write them a lot. Like I have so many, where I wrote a like Avengers type of fan fiction, but I blended it with X-Men, and I created my own character who was cloned. I know how you feel about clone stuff, Tony. She was cloned, and made to be a weapon. Double it up for you. And she was cloned from Wolverine and Storm's DNA. So she had his senses, but she had her, but she had his senses, but she had her weather abilities. So like it was like a mixture of both. So yeah.
Okay.
Then I brought in Captain America, Winter Soldier. I brought in like Nick Fury. It was crazy. I brought in Professor X. It was nice. Like it's a nice little story in my book. But
Look,
yeah.
I'm
So
just
like
saying, at some point, maybe we could just have a live reading of it. You know, live.
I'm down if y'all want to read it.
I'm down.
Y'all want to read a little bit. I'm down if y'all want to read a little bit. I still got it on my computer. But yeah,
Hey, there's
so like
room. There's room in Nerd Initiative for fan fiction. Let's go for it. Like
I'm here for it.
Do
I'm
it.
down, man. I'm here
Yeah.
for it because it's one of my. I haven't even finished it yet, but it's like it's more than 10 chapters. It's like it's a nice amount of chapters, and like we can jump or however it is. But like
after a week,
yeah,
and just keep us all in the
yeah.
hook.
No, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
I can definitely do that because like I like it's one of my favorite stories. So I actually put like time into it. Like, you know, like I looked at characters and I figured out how to do it. And like Nick Fury's in it. Like all the Avengers are essentially in it. And then I brought X-Men characters in it. So like that's pretty much what it is. So but I love Laura. I thought she was great. I thought that little actress killed that role. Nobody else could have played X-23 in my book but her.
No,
So.
Daphne Keane did way too well. She set
like,
the bar.
Beyond, yeah.
And there's no going over that bar now. That she has to be X-23.
No.
I'll take nothing less.
No, I'm right there with you.
Now here's I finally remembered what I was going to say. Then I lost what I was going to say, and then I remembered what I was going to say, and then at the moment we were just talking, I lost again. But I do remember it now. So here's my thought. Okay, Logan obviously takes place in a. And I think we talked about this before. A lot of these movies feel like they take place in alternate timelines, like they're just a different place in the multiverse. Like it just they don't fit perfectly. They just kind of cross over. But I really feel like what they were trying to do with Logan was tell a one-off story that was separate from everything else. Do you really feel like the fans in 2017 got that? Or do you think part of the problem with, let's say, you know, Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix down the road was kind of like they didn't know where everything fit because they weren't ready for like the multiverse within Fox?
I don't really think they cared. I just think they were like, we got this good idea for an X-rated Wolverine movie. Let's do it. I don't really think because if you think about it, they don't mention any other characters. They mention them very fleetingly. It was very much like this is to wrap up Hugh Jackman as Wolverine because he told us he's done. So let's give him the best exit. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Hugh Jackman has wanted to do Old Man Logan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken. So this was just like let's wrap it up, y'all. Like this is his last go about. And then, you know, Wolverine Deadpool. But like, I think that's pretty much what it is. And I think a lot of fans were just excited for this film because of the comic, even though it's not
anything like it.
Like anything like it. So like, but I think fans were like,
it should have been. It's not Old Man Logan. It's Logan Old Man. It's
no, for sure. Like that's literally what it is. So I think like fans were just excited. Like, oh, this is one of my favorite comics. I'm excited to see it. And then they were like, okay, it wasn't like the comic, but I still think the majority of them enjoyed it. I haven't really met too many people that were like, it's shit. You know what I mean? I've seen more people say that like, oh, it could have been better and I like it, but you know, not Caliban was Hawkeye. Listen, I don't know who should be disrespected in this, Hawkeye or Caliban, because like that's disrespectful because I love Hawkeye too.
Z, I love this AARP Logan. That is absolutely
that's right.
That is yes. Now, so Logan, with the promise of Old Man Logan, was a disappointment to me in that aspect because I had gotten into Old Man Logan with the 2014 Secret Wars event, so I was invested then.
Okay,
and I like that because of course, as much as there is criticisms for the last Secret Wars event, I will tell you there are stories within that saga that are phenomenal. The Planet Hulk story with Steve Rogers was amazing. The zombie, the Marvel zombies,
Mhm.
with the head of Deadpool hanging was phenomenal. The Old Man Logan story I really enjoyed, and it was what got me wanting to go more into the comics. I have a whole stack of Old Man Logan comics because of that. But it disappointed me in the same way as Age of Ultron did. And I
Mhm.
almost feel like sometimes there's an understanding we can be okay with with titles not always living up. Multiverse of Madness was not a multiverse of madness.
It
It was
Yeah.
wasn't.
madness with a couple multiverses.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You but like for the Old Man Logan to be like revered, and then you give us nothing of it. It's like, okay, it was an okay story, but there was so much potential that they could have ran. And
Mhm.
mind you, they couldn't have done it. They couldn't have referenced the Hulks. They couldn't have referenced, this and that, because
Mhm.
Fox couldn't do it. So they did the
I
best
mean,
they
they
could with
kind
what
of
they
could
had.
have, you don't say the Hulk, you just say like an angry
The
green
big
man. Like you just
the
say,
big green guy.
yeah, you say like generic words. But I
Give
Yeah.
but
them
I
a
get what you're saying
monsters.
though. Right. I get what you're saying though. But yeah, I get
Yeah. It's like it's like, so they could have, I mean, other stuff. But it's like, and I'm going to say this because this isn't even, what we're talking about, but it burns my biscuits. I liked Age of Ultron, but I absolutely loved the Age of Ultron story in the comics. Like, I remember when I was buying every issue on Comixology, because remember, Comixology was like a big thing back,
No,
like,
yeah, back in the
Yeah.
day. Oh yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like, but
I love
and so
comicsology.
I have every single digital version of the Superior Spider-Man. I have like Walking Dead up to a certain point, because at some point I got tired of zombies. Um
Mhm.
and Age of Ultron,
As we all
Age of
did.
Ultron was such a good story, and then for them to use that title, I'm kind of glad they didn't call it Old Man Logan, because it would have been more
Mhm.
disappointing. But
Yeah.
it's at some point where that we just have to be like, okay, you don't have to run comic stories. You can tell stories that are different than what we've had. Like,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it kind of follows on. We got an Old Man Logan. I'm glad
It
you
was
liked it a
their
lot.
version. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was their version.
and I enjoyed it, and I liked it. Now I didn't
Mhm.
like it enough to go watch it in black and white, even though I have the noir version. You
No,
know,
no offense. Like I need to see the blood. That's just me. It's just my dark side
yeah,
coming out. I don't need myself to be black and white. I like stylized stuff, but even Quentin Tarantino's Kill Bill wasn't fully black and white. It had moments and then they snapped it back. And that was only for the rating, so they can get the rating down. Other than that,
mhm.
like yeah, I need my blood,
But
my
that's the thing.
spurts.
Like it's kind of one of those things where it's like, um, Disney thought they were doing something by kind of stopping mutant storylines, so that they had, if we find out you're not referencing the comics in the first place, and you're not letting
Mm-hmm.
your actors, your cast actually read the comics to get an idea
Mm-hmm.
what the characters are, why not tell original stories? Like, I
Right.
feel like we got that with First Class a bit. Like, they
Yeah.
took a real life instance of, nuclear, a standoff, and
Mm-hmm.
they turned it around and immediately made it something that was mutant centric, which I thought was great. And then we do Days of Future Past, which wasn't really Days of Future Past, but kind of Days of Future Past. And then
Yeah.
we've got Old Man Logan, who's kind of Old Man Logan, but not really Old Man Logan. Then we get
Mm-hmm.
Dark Phoenix, I'm sorry. Then we get Apocalypse, which is more Ivan Ooze versus the X-Men.
It was
And
heavy Ivan Ooze. I was getting Power Rangers flashbacks when I was watching that film. I promise you I was. It was
so
hilarious.
I guess my question is, as comic book fans,
Mm-hmm.
and then comic book movie fans,
Mm-hmm.
are we at a point now in comic book movies where we don't want to see the comic book stories, and we want to see new stories in the movies? Or do we really want to go back to those, and we want to still be disappointed knowing that they're never going to give us the same payoff as in the comics? What do you think?
It's a good question. Look at you, Tony, asking the good questions.
I mean, I still want to see
Um,
comic book stories, but a lot of comic book stories aren't really able to be transferred into a movie or a TV show format. So I'm cool with
Mhm.
taking things from the comics, but don't name your movie or show after a comic that doesn't follow the comic, like Secret Invasion. We all remember Secret Invasion. Great story.
mhm.
The show was not. So I feel like take what you want from the comics, but just it feels like false advertisement to me. So come up with a new name, figure it out.
Could I say that maybe this is the way to go? Like, instead of us doing individual comic storylines, we like with Spider-Man, we get this. We had something different. There were key moments within Spider-Man that had to happen. Okay, we lose a Ben Parker. We the Gwen Stacy drop was a big deal. But then we had new stories. We had a different take on Rey Mysterio. I don't want to say Rey Mysterio. Oh my goodness.
Rey Mysterio's hilarious.
On Mysterio. Like, we had a different take on Mysterio. We had a different take on Molten Man and all of the different, those elementals. But we also got Avengers Infinity War, which was more Thanos quest, but still it still had the key things. Now, mind you, where in the comics we thought, the story happens, but nobody remembers except for like Adam Warlock and Doctor Strange. They raised the stakes and actually had a 5-year where everything is different, which was great. And we're getting Secret Wars down the road, and Secret Wars could be anything and everything. And so maybe the idea is have key moments in the character stories that they run, but let's not do like full on, it's going to be this run, it's going to be this thing, and then let the big events, kind of like Secret Wars, Infinity War,
right? But like I feel like I don't know. I feel like none of these, just because I understand both sides. Like I understand being a comic book fan and being like, okay, Secret Wars, okay, we're going to get this, and this, and then when we watch it, we don't get that and that, and it's like, oh, okay, this isn't the Secret Wars that I remember. But also, I think as comic book fans, like we're kind of like a Thanos Iron Man hybrid, because like we're blessed, like we're like cursed with knowledge, right? Yeah. So when you're cursed with like beforehand knowledge, right, you're automatically like, oh, this is going to happen. And then when it doesn't happen, you're like, well, this is not what I remember of Man Logan or Secret Wars, etc. But the way that like I have a tendency to look at things is like, this is the MCU's Secret Invasion. This is Fox's Old Man Logan, even though it's only called Logan and stuff like that. Like, so I think there needs to be like a little separation of what we know and what we don't know, because they're not following the full blueprint of these comics leading up to these things. They're literally just taking bits and pieces and creating their own timeline, which, as we know in the multiverse, there's still an Iron Man. He's always going to be Iron Man, but he's going to be slightly different. So to me, this is like the MCU's or Fox's or whoever's like alternate universe that's parallel to what we remember, but it won't be the same. And I think if people looked at it a little bit more like that, then like it might soothe the savage beasts of like watching these things and being like, this didn't happen, or they took this out of context, or this wasn't the thing. But also on the flip side of that, how cool would it be if we can get what we see in these comics literally on screen? And I think if they tried hard enough, they could actually pull that off. But because they've created their own timeline, their own, like, not this character, but this character, it's going to be very hard to kind of like go back that route, unless they just wipe it clean. Let's say Flashpoint it or something. You know what I mean?
So let me say this, because like I know we're running over the hour now, but I kind of feel like this is a good. So my problem with Secret Invasion, was Secret Invasion had no stakes in any other property in any of the phases to give us that concept, and to the point of where when the Rhodey Skrull turn happened, everyone's like, oh no, he's not been Rhodey since he got injured in Civil War, which wasn't the case. Because the earliest that he could have been switched was the moment in Falcon and the Winter Soldier when you see him talking to Sam, and Sam's like, hey, you're not using any, and he's like, oh yeah,
no, that's to me, that's where I thought it happened, because he was still broken and bruised in what, Civil Wars, and he was, so when I saw him in Falcon Winter Soldier walking, I was like, I know Tony was kind of creating that thing for you, like that little.
And in Endgame, we saw that he came out of the suit and he had to crawl.
Right.
When he goes, canopy, and he gets out and he's like,
he's crawling. He ain't walking. No, right.
So like there wasn't enough of a real. I mean, that was like so passing. We didn't get any hints or any ideas of Skrull, because let's face it, the Skrulls in Secret Invasion, the comics, and it's not a comic book run that I really ran into, except for I've read a lot of, like, I remember I was reading an issue of I think it was like Avengers or whatever. It was the point where the Illuminati were together and they're sitting there talking, and all of a sudden one of them pulls out the body bag and it's a Skrull, and you realize, like, wait, they're infiltrating us. And there was this concept of, like, they had been stationed in different places, and it would almost be like you could tell that there were certain variations in the characters' behaviors that would have kind of been like, okay, was that a Skrull? Like, you go back and look, there was nothing in any of the films preceding. And I think that's the problem. Like, the moment they say, oh, we're going to do Secret Invasion as a Disney Plus series, it's like, no, don't do that. Please don't do that. Like, the same thing with, like, Armor Wars. Don't do it. Because Armor Wars could be a whole lot more than just a Disney Plus series, because it could impact so much more. I mean, we did get the idea that Damage Controls took Iron Man technology from Stark Industries in No Way Home, but we don't know anything more because no one's talked about it since. Right. And so it's like you've gotta lay the groundwork. And so for the X-Men films, I think what worked for them in a sense was that they weren't necessarily following the stories, but then they were titling their movies to be certain things that they weren't. And it's like the old.
But I feel like they were just not in the way you wanted it to be. And I think that's the difference, right? And that's just how I see it. Like, because like I said, I understand both sides. As a comic book reader, you're like, yo, they about to do Secret War. Like, oh, it's like Secret Invasion. Let's go. Like, this is going to be dope. This going to happen. That's going to happen. This going to happen. Like, they're ready for the things that they've seen. But you really got to go back into the trajectory of what we've seen up until this point. Can that happen? You know what I mean? Yeah. Can this from Secret Wars happen? Did it happen? Did you see anything about this happening? Like, to me, Secret Wars makes a slight sense because I looked at it like it started in Captain Marvel, right? That was in 1995.
Secret Invasion?
Yes, that's what. I'm sorry, Secret Invasion. Yeah, so like Secret Invasion started like, it started in Captain Marvel. Like they've been there. Them Skrulls. Who's to say that all of them died? Who's to say that all of them got like sent back to wherever they were? They could have easily infiltrated in our world since 1995. And have been leading like this life, watching the bigotry of this world, because like sometimes it's hard when you have like a situation like Fox or the MCU, where it's like you have this vast world, right? Like, and you don't see it continue to play out, and so they'll pick up to another spot. It's like when you watch TV, like if you watch a series, and the next episode is like, it's been a month since the last episode, and you like, it's been a month, but like we don't get to see that passage of time, right? So like it's hard for us. For us, it's the next day. Like if they said, like if I'm watching the show and they say it's Monday, the next time I see the show, I'm gonna think it's Tuesday, unless they say otherwise. And I feel like that's how movies kind of like move in the time.
Well, in that situation, it's not really fair to say it about Secret Invasion, because you had Samuel L. Jackson out here saying completely incorrect information that Secret Invasion was supposed to lead straight into the Marvels, and then everyone had a time frame like, okay, this is when it happened. Turns out that wasn't true. We've been gaslit, people. So Secret Invasion, it's like they made one part of a show, then halfway through the show they're like, never mind, let's just change it up,
which I think is what they did, which is why I don't think he really gaslit us. I feel like he might have got gaslit, because Marvel MCU, they have a tendency to be like, this is what we're doing, and then but guess what, we just scraped this whole thing, we're no longer doing this anymore, and we're like, you just sent out the YouTubes.
Well here's the thing. See, this is where things got muddled with like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. in the MCU, because Marvel Television and Marvel Studios were not working together. And at certain points they did coincide, but then they didn't. And I think what happened with Secret Invasion was they had this film, they were doing it, they were in post-production, and then all of a sudden the Marvels actually canceled out part of the plot line for Secret Invasion, because part of the
Yeah.
complaint that the Skrulls had was there was no place for them to call their own. And then in Marvels, we see that there is a Skrull settlement that the Kree are trying to take over. And it's like,
Yeah.
wait a second, like you kind of just gaslit yourselves in a
Yeah.
sense of like, wait, what? Why are you angry when there is a settlement that you guys have established? You even have a guy with a crown going on, and Captain Marvel's doing this, and then you're complaining about her. What happened there? And I think that's the thing. Like, as much as I hate to say this, there was a time when there was a most hated Marvel creative committee for the Marvel Studios films that added a lot of unnecessary stuff to the movies, but they at least kept some bit of unity. And I kind of feel like we need to go back to that concept. I love Marvel. I love every single Marvel property, some more than others.
Of course, yeah.
And I listen, I got a lot of hate back in 2022 because I rated Black Widow very low in my like top of phase 4 because it was a phase 3 film. It wasn't because I hated it. And someone took me out of context and called me a misogynist because of it. I'm like, seriously, it's not a phase 4 film. It's a phase 3 film.
Black Widow wasn't bad, for the record, folks. Black Widow wasn't bad at all. It was a great film. They just released it wrong because any of the feelings that we needed to have for that film went away when Endgame went away. Here's my complaint. It just went away.
Here's my complaint for Black Widow. This is my one complaint for Black Widow because I love that film and I can go back and watch it a whole lot more than I can watch a lot of other stuff that I do love still. My complaint was Scarlett Johansson, Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff should have been the first female-led film.
Agreed.
In the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Agreed.
I love Captain Marvel, but she put the legwork in and she needed to have some opportunity to flesh herself out. And it would have been a perfect phase 3 film right after Civil War. Yep. And they did her wrong. They waited too long. And then they even messed up to the point where I'm glad she sued Disney during the pandemic for doing the premiere release on Disney Plus, although I paid for it because I wanted to see it.
Right.
I absolutely felt like it was that thing. Let's not make a person of color, a lead. Let's not make a female a lead because they don't sell toys. Shut up. They do. And they're absolutely look at the phenomenon that Black Panther was. And some people still crap on Wakanda Forever. I think that Wakanda Forever is not, in my opinion, is in my opinion better than the first one. And that's hard to say because I absolutely loved what they did with Shuri, much better than they did in some of the comics with her. But that's my opinion. But again, it goes down that road of like, the only complaint I have with Black Widow is she should have been sooner. And
it should have been way sooner. It should have been way, even if they wanted to release Captain Marvel first, right? Because technically Captain Marvel is a prequel in a sense, right? It's not really like
Captain Marvel was supposed to appear at the end of Civil War.
Right. So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, to me, Captain Marvel is a prequel, which is fine, right? I don't care. Like you could have released her first, but I still feel like Natasha deserved and Scarlett deserved way more than what she got from her film, just kind of like being like, throw it on the thing. And I think Marvel has a bad tendency of doing that with female films, because like even the Marvels didn't get as much attention and promotion as any of these other films did. Like there was no interviews, and if there was interviews, it was red carpet things. Like nobody got sat down on like Jimmy Fallon or Seth Meyers or any of these shows to like talk about this stuff.
Well, the strikes were happening. They couldn't promote that movie into premiere. That's why Brie, Iman, and I'm forgetting people's names.
Tiana.
Tiana. Yeah, Iman and Tiana.
Yeah.
I've been watching the Princess Frog movie.
You're fine.
And I was like, that cannot be her name.
It is just spelled different.
They all
Parrish, right?
Yeah, Tiana Parrish.
Yeah, they all ran out on a plane the next night, and as soon as they could, they dropped in on interviews on red carpets because it was the night after it premiered. The strikes ended, and they were legally.
No, I get that. But if you look at, I'm that too. Like I get that, so that makes perfect sense. But I also mean like promotion on TV as well. I just meant like commercials and like. And Disney's been doing that. Like, they did that with Strange Worlds. Like, nobody knew that movie existed. Like, it didn't get played a lot, on places. Like, it just,
let's also admit, let's also admit, Strange World, they buried it a little bit because they were doing something that they felt was going to get them flack, and they didn't just embrace it. They kind of
Right.
pushed it in
And
there.
but
And
that's
then
what
of
I
course
feel like they do
yeah,
with a lot of films, like a lot of female or minority or any type of like led films that isn't like straight white male films. They bury the lead, or they are like, well, we did a little bit, or like they just throw it out, and it's like somebody will pick it up. Like Raya and the Last Dragon is one of the best movies that they've created, and like a lot of people don't even know about it. And it's a female lead, and she's a woman of the world, like a person of the global world. Like,
yeah.
it's like, come on, folks, like let's do a little bit
Well,
better.
it was, and
A little bit
also
better,
I think it, beyond, because I agree with you. I think beyond the female lead or a person of color being involved or whatever it is, um, part of the problem I think Disney also had was the idea that they thought Marvel is a cash cow, very much like what Sony did with Spider-Man. Marvel's
Yeah.
a cash cow. We don't really need to promote at this point anymore
Mhm.
because look at Guardians of the Galaxy. It did
Yeah.
really well post pandemic, and of course they don't understand the amount of online talk and everything else,
Yeah.
and
But
the fact
that's
that it's
just
a
bad
story.
marketing though. That's just
Yeah,
bad marketing to me, because
but they
these are
assumed that it had the
established,
label.
but these are established things, right? And like of
Yeah.
course that label, like that label is going to get you far, right? That label, like something that got Marvel splashed on it, it's going to get you far. Like if I put something with a Marvel moniker on my thing, people are more likely to look at my video as opposed to like not looking at it because they think I might know something that somebody else doesn't know. But it's one of
Mhm.
those things to like Marvel, you're Disney, both of y'all too big of a company to just rest on your laurels in that sense. Like something like Guardians or Iron Man or something doesn't need to be like pushed because it's already been established. Like Captain Marvel got panned, even though it's an amazing film, made $1 billion. It got People were so mad at these women. So you would think, okay, now we bring in three other, like every woman has gotten like trash. Like all these three Marvels in some
Yeah.
way have been trashed by like fans online. So you wouldn't just well, I say you wouldn't because they did it, but I'm just saying like you shouldn't have just thrown them up in the air and be like, it'll stick, hopefully, and people will see
Yeah.
it before it falls to the ground. And it's like that's unfair to like the mountains of people that put in work behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, everything, especially during, like Megan brought up, during like the strike and everything, where they couldn't speak for themselves and speak on their characters and speak how this is connected. Y'all could have did way more to give these people like some shine and some like just a little more love. You know what I mean? I feel like the love is
Yeah.
lost sometimes in Marvel and
Let, let,
Disney.
I
let
think
me
so
say this.
too.
Because I have such sympathy for Iman Vellani for her first theatrical debut
Mm-hmm.
in a character. She loves Marvel, and for her to
Mhm.
be Miss Marvel, and she couldn't even, because she's a bigger, let's face it, she argued with Kevin Feige over stuff, and to know that kind of person wasn't able to talk about what they loved.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly believe if there was no strike, if Iman was able to come out and speak out, I bet there would have been a higher reception
I
for the
agree.
Marvels,
I agree.
because her Iman Vellani is a national treasure when it comes to,
Yes.
I absolutely believe that. I absolutely love her.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I love Shuri. Letitia Wright's kind of did some weird things during the pandemic. I know Evangeline
Mm-hmm.
Lilly did. I'm kind of glad Evangeline Lilly's trying to go off and, into the sunset and, kind of retire a little bit from acting.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. But there are people that just exude, and they're just
Mm-hmm.
overjoyed about their
Just
roles,
genuinely
and
happy,
to
yeah,
quiet them. Yeah,
for doing
absolutely.
this, yeah.
And of course, Captain Marvel getting flack because she made the comment about there being too many, old white men that are reviewing these films. And listen, I don't have to tell them. Megan and Lon know exactly what that meant. But for you
Mm-hmm.
guys that are out there that may look like me but don't think properly, let me just say this: what she meant by that, when she said there are too many old white men talking, was not that there should be less old white men talking about films.
Mm-hmm.
She was talking about adding female and people of color
Mm-hmm.
to the
Yeah.
platform, to the voices, add to the voices, not take away. I don't think anybody that's ever said anything has ever thought about taking away voices, except for people who think that they should look like this and
Mm-hmm.
do what they do. It's always adding to the story,
Yeah.
to the voice. And it's sad because she got flack because of that when they were just too stupid to realize. And unfortunately, I feel like there are people that need to be there are men that mansplain that need to be mansplained to understand what women are talking about sometimes.
Agreed.
So, but
Agreed. Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
this has been an interesting conversation.
I love it.
So we're at an hour and 20 minutes. Any final thoughts from both you guys?
Oh, we're talking about Logan. Oh,
yeah. I was gonna say, thank you for watching the Anything But Logan show.
I'm gonna give it a 4 out of 10.
I don't know. If you haven't seen Logan before, go watch it. You at least need to go see it at least once if you haven't seen it before. And I don't know, support these films. I mean, they're gonna be around forever. I don't think they're never not going to be there. They might die down for a little bit, but I think they're always going to be around in some shape or form because kids are growing up every day. And I try to tell people this all the time. Disney is not making movies for, 40, 50-year-olds. They're making movies for like teens and tweens and for people to continue to grow up. Disney's always been a company like that. So I just need everybody to like breathe and relax when, you see characters and things that you're like, this is not my Doctor Who. This is not the thing. Of course it's not, because it's 2024 and they want more people to come and watch. So they have to be just as inclusive as they were in the times before. Like,
yeah.
Okay, breathe, people. I just want people to just understand what you're getting into, right? This enjoy what you enjoy. Leave the rest on the floor for other people to partake in and enjoy, because none of these companies are making these films for us. Essentially, anything that comes, Percy Jackson, the TV show Percy Jackson. I love that show. It wasn't made for me, but I still love that show. I love it
too. Yeah.
I thought it was so good. I still think it was a little rudimentary in the writing because I know it's kids, but I still feel like kids are smarter than what people give them credit for. But overall, a really good show, but they just didn't make it for me. So who am I to be like, this is trash because the kids talk like kids.
It's like, it doesn't remind me of the movie. It had nothing to do with the books.
Right. It had nothing to do. Like, I don't want to. No, they're not making this for me. They literally made it for the people who love the books, because Rick was like, listen, this ain't going to happen unless y'all do this the way I want it to be done. You know what I mean? So it's like, breathe. Let's enjoy these films and let's keep it moving, folks. Those are my final words.
Megan?
Yeah, okay. If you go to see Logan, if you have not seen Logan, make sure you rest up because you might find it really long and boring. So I hope you don't, but there's someone else out there like me. That's okay.
It definitely is 100%.
Oh no.
100%.
Paperweight Entertainment cannot stand Wolverine. I don't even know if he's watched these films. He probably has, just to be able to say. Here's what I would say as well. I think what La and Megan have said, completely valid. It was enjoyable for me for the first viewing. It's not one of the films that I go back and watch over and over again.
I agree.
I will say this. I absolutely will watch clips of it if I see them on TikTok. If it's on television for whatever reason, which I don't know why it would be because it's rated R. But like if it's made for television version,
but it's gonna be cut. It's gonna be cut.
I will probably watch to certain points. But there are parts where you watch the film, you're like, I'm good until this point. You just want to change it away. But again, any of these films worth a first viewing. I even say things like Madam Web are worth watching because it's so fun to crap on some films. It's absolutely fun to crap.
It's a joy. Them. It's a joy and a pleasure. Yeah. Okay.
It's kind of a shared experience thing. That's what I've always loved. That's why I like going to the movies. It's the shared experience. It's laughing when the audience laughs. It's cheering when they do, or groaning when they do. And I also agree with La. It's not made for people that are over 40. I'm being a guy. I'm 41 years old.
And I'm close to 40. So
there are times where I've gone into a film and I've thought, I'm not sure if I'm going to like this. And I go in understanding that it may not be for me. And I come out pleasantly surprised. I think that's what we have to do. We have to stop thinking that it's going to cater to I was back there in the 80s when this was going on. And I played the X-Men arcade game
beautiful.
until my fingers bled. That's great.
It's beautiful.
That was yours.
Sure was.
This is
theirs.
So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm just glad to be part of the ride.
Stop being that curmudgeon.
I'm
Don't
the
be
guy-
a curmudgeon. Okay.
Yeah, see, I'm the guy who's been sitting watching the Alkali going, this is really cool. I like that they're expounding more on Star Wars. And there are people that have like, I really wish they would have talked more about High Republic and stuff like that. And then they watch this film like, I can't believe that they're doing this to High Republic. Like, what else did they do? Did you read the book?
Right. No, for sure. But even then, it's one of those things where it's like the books, I feel like all of these things are different universes. The books are its own universe, and the TV show or movies or whatever is another universe. Everything won't, and it's going to be bits and pieces that connect them, but it's not going to be shot for shot, word for word what it is. Like, it's just accept it for what it is. And if you don't like it, you don't like it. But one of my things I really, really do not like is when people review bomb something they don't know about, or they didn't even give it a chance because you already have a preconceived notion about it. So just it ain't made for y'all. like because as a black person who didn't grow up with a lot of black people in the sci-fi nerdy space, it's so dope seeing like black leads or leads of color step into these spaces and be superheroes and young women and older women and all this kind of stuff. We didn't get that. So when these like quote unquote fans come out and they're like, how are you black in the House of Dragon? How are you this in the Game of Thrones? And how are you this? It's like it's
exist. A world with
dragons. A world with dragons. You telling me
even Earth.
You feel me? And you telling me a person of color can't be a part of that? Like, I'm just like, you can suspend your disbelief about dragons, but you can't suspend your disbelief about like all people of all colors, of all sizes, of all everything being in these worlds. That makes no sense to me. Like, that's where your imagination stops. Oh, this is inaccurate. No.
It's like with the boys, how they can't believe Frenchie is bisexual, but they're fully prepared to allow Deep to get it on with an octopus. It's like, whoa.
No, for sure.
Your priorities are a little confusing here.
What's going on, folks? So it's just one of those things where like I'm happy to see the world kind of grow with the people that it's involved in, because it's been black nerds since the dawn of time. We just haven't gotten the shine that we like because people assume that we're not going to pay for it. It's just this weird narrative that we don't pay for things, or we won't go out and watch things, or we won't go out and consume things, when like we're some of the biggest consumers of this stuff anyway. And why wouldn't you cater to us? Why wouldn't you like give us something that we can grasp on? Like to have a Shuri doll, to have a like a Miss Marvel doll. I have a Miss Marvel Funko. Like I have a Miss Marvel Funko. Like,
oh, me too.
That's so dope.
I have a Shuri Funko. That's awesome.
I have a Monica Rambeau. Me too. I do. I have like her in her original.
I have a real on the shelf over here. Like I
like that. I have those, and to be like 37 years old, and this is like the first like superhero, like black superhero, black like of color superhero like I have, and I'm 37. That's wild. It's going to be kids that's going to be born that's never going to know anything different, and I think that's what makes it amazing. They're gonna be like, I've always had my Monica Rambeau. I've always had my Miss Marvel. I've always had, like, they won't know anything different. And I think that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of these things growing with the times. Because if you go back to like Doctor Who was so different 60 years ago. It wasn't a black person in sight in those shows back then. They didn't have, like, they barely had male companions back then. And as the time has changed, even the doctors changed.
When John Barrowman came on, that was like
an American.
And then they complained about like the Rogue episode in this last season, and it's like, do you not know when Captain Jack appeared, like how flamboyant he was, and you were okay with that? In fact, people go to, if you don't know, if you even question like, oh, he's not like that. John Barrowman goes to conventions, and when he's on stage, he wears dresses and he wears heels, and he is the most ostentatious,
Yeah, I took a
like
picture with him
like
at he
showman
came to the
that there is. Yeah,
he
yeah.
came to the Motor City Comic Con like some years back, and I wanted to take a picture with him so bad. I paid for the ticket. I was like, I gotta take a picture with John Barrowman. I gotta take a picture with Captain Jack / Michael Merlin. I was like, I gotta take this picture. And I left my ticket at home because I was rushing. And I was like losing my mind. And I had called my mom and I was like, Mom, you have to bring me my ticket. She's like, where is it? I'm like, it's in this bag. Please just bring it to me. Just bring it to me. Bring it to me. Bring. And he was getting ready to like wrap up and be done. It was like at the end of the night, he was about to wrap up and be done. And I was like, no. So I was like, can you please tell him that we're going to ask him? And he waited for my mom to get there with my ticket so that I could take a picture with him. And I rushed back there and he saw that I was like hyperventilating because I was like, I didn't want him to like, I knew he was tired. I knew he was ready to go. I was hyperventilating. He was like, look at me. He grabbed my hands. He was like, look at me, breathe, calm down. He was great. He was so nice. He was so nice. It's one of my favorite pictures. I look terrible in the picture, but it was a great picture.
See, when I met him, I didn't get his autograph or anything, but I met him at a convention. I only knew him from the Arrow. So like he was a very relatively new act. Like I didn't know him from Doctor Who because I'm still getting into it. But nice. Absolutely kindest person. But let's go ahead and wrap up because we're already at an hour and a half.
Yeah, my bad.
Yeah,
I got excited.
No, it's okay. Yeah. So,
Sorry,
my last thing I'm going to say before we wrap up, if you like X-23 in Logan, Daphne Keane, you'll also like her in The Acolyte. Star Wars The Acolyte is on Disney Plus now. You can check her out there.
Please
Next week, we will be talking about X-Men Apocalypse and X-Men Dark Phoenix. We're getting those last two X-Men properties out of the way. For the next week after that, we're talking about Deadpool.
Yes.
So be sure to check us out next week, Wednesday, July 3rd, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. We would love to have you with us here on Nerd Initiative, wherever you find us. Hopefully, you'll also find us on Facebook at that time.
Everywhere.
With that, I am Tony. You can find me at Mr. Marvelite. We've got Megan. Megan, go and tell us where you're at.
I am everywhere at Vigilante Vibes Podcast and on Twitter at Megan the Gangsta.
Nice. I love that, Megan the Gangsta. And La, go ahead. Tell us where you can find you.
You can follow me on all social media at Black Girl Marvel everywhere.